Have you ever had one of those moments that felt almost too precise to be random? You think of a friend you haven't spoken to in years, and suddenly your phone lights up with their name. You keep seeing the same number, 1111, on clocks, license plates, and receipts, until it feels like reality itself is nudging you. Or maybe the exact opportunity you were hoping for appears out of nowhere, at the perfect moment, in a way that logic can't explain. These are what people call synchronicities. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, called them meaningful coincidences, events that look impossible to explain through simple cause and effect, yet feel charged with significance, like reality is whispering to you in its own secret language. But here's the paradox: most people misunderstand synchronicity. Some dismiss it as chance and ignore it. Others cling to it desperately, treating every little sign like a reward or a superstition. And both approaches miss the deeper truth. Because synchronicity isn't random luck, and it isn't breadcrumbs dropped by the universe to prove you're on the right path. To understand it, we need to zoom out far beyond everyday logic. We need to step into a perspective where science, spirituality, and psychology meet, where ancient myths echo what quantum physics is only now beginning to reveal. So before we explore how synchronicity mirrors your energy in daily life, let's look at what's happening on the grandest scale. Because when you see how the universe itself is wired, you'll understand why synchronicity is not just possible, but inevitable. For centuries, people tried to explain synchronicity through the lens of Newtonian physics, the old worldview that everything must follow a straight line of cause and effect. A pushes B, B pushes C, like dominoes falling in sequence. And within that model, coincidences had no real meaning. They were dismissed as random accidents of chance. But synchronicity refuses to fit inside that box. And that's where both modern science and ancient wisdom come together to tell us a different story. Long ago, in the wisdom traditions of ancient India, sages told a vision so poetic it feels timeless. They spoke of the sky god Indra, who stretched across the cosmos a net so infinite it reached in every direction without end. At every crossing point of this net, Indra placed a radiant jewel. Each jewel was crystal clear, polished, and perfectly reflective. And here was the wonder: when you gazed into a single jewel, you didn't just see that jewel. You saw the reflection of every other jewel in the entire net. And within each of those reflections, you saw all the others again and again. In an endless play of mirrors, touch just one jewel, and the whole net trembled. Light up one jewel, and the radiance spread everywhere. Nothing was separate. Every jewel carried the whole. The sages told this story not as fantasy, but as revelation that reality itself is woven like Indra's net. That every thought, every action, every being is linked to all others. When one vibrates, all vibrate. When one shines, all are illuminated. Now fast forward to modern physics. In the quantum world, particles behave in ways that defy ordinary logic. Take the observer effect. When a particle is left unobserved, it spreads out like a wave, existing in all possibilities at once. But the moment you observe it, it collapses into one specific reality. In other words, the very act of noticing changes what becomes real. Suddenly, observation isn't passive, it's creative. And then there's quantum entanglement. Two particles that were once connected can remain linked no matter how far apart they travel. Change the state of one, and the other responds instantly, even if they're separated by galaxies. Einstein famously called this spooky action at a distance. But for us, it's a striking parallel to synchronicity. just as entangled particles influence each other across space and time. Events in your outer world can be entangled with the state of your inner world. Think of someone and they call you. Dream of an opportunity and it shows up the next day. Science says improbable. Entanglement says inevitable. What's astonishing is how closely this mirrors the vision of Indra's net. The jewels of the ancient story are not so different from entangled particles in the lab. Both suggest a universe woven together by invisible threads, where separation is an illusion. Carl Jung sensed this long before the language of quantum mechanics caught up. He saw synchronicity as a bridge between psyche and matter, mind and world. He noticed that these meaningful coincidences often echoed symbols and archetypes, universal patterns that live in what he called the collective unconscious. It was as if synchronicity was not random, but the psyche's way of revealing its connection to the larger fabric of reality. Think about it when you experience synchronicity. It's rarely just about the surface event. It often stirs something archetypal within you, a sense of destiny, of mystery, of being part of a story larger than yourself. That's the collective unconscious speaking, woven together with the quantum field, whispering, you are not separate, you are part of something vast. So when we look at synchronicity through all these lenses, ancient myth, modern science, depth psychology, we see the same truth repeating in different languages. Synchronicity isn't superstition. It isn't luck. It's coherence. It's resonance. It's the ripple of your inner state across the net of reality. And the more you align your thoughts, emotions, and body into harmony, the clearer the ripples become. That's when synchronicities stop feeling random and start feeling undeniable, like the universe is speaking directly to you, not in words, but in patterns. This is the bridge. Science, spirit, and psyche, all pointing to the same mystery. The universe is not a machine, it's a living field, and synchronicity is its language. Now that we've seen how synchronicity is woven into the very structure of the universe, let's bring it closer to our personal lives. Because synchronicity doesn't only exist in myths or in physics experiments. It shows up in our relationships, in our choices, in the quiet corners of daily life. And here's the truth. Synchronicity is not always a confirmation that you're on the right path. Sometimes, it's simply a mirror of the energy you're radiating. Let me tell you a story. A few years ago, I was in a relationship that seemed full of synchronicities. In the beginning, it felt magical. We would say the same thing at the same time. One of us would think a thought, and the other would speak it out loud. Songs on the radio seemed to mirror our feelings perfectly. And I took all of it as proof that this connection was meant to be. But then, subtle cracks began to show. The synchronicities were still there. But alongside them came moments that didn't feel right, times when communication slipped, when I felt more anxious than supported, when the signs said alignment, but my body whispered something is off. It was confusing, almost contradictory. The external signals looked enchanted, but the inner experience was growing heavy. And that's when I began to see the pattern differently. The synchronicities weren't proof of destiny. They were simply showing that our energies were blending. We were thinking about each other constantly, pouring so much attention into the connection that our vibrations lined up. And when vibrations align, synchronicities naturally appear. That realization was eye-opening. Because while the synchronicities felt enchanting, the relationship itself revealed imbalance moments where I felt unseen, unheard, or emotionally drained. And it made me ask a deeper question. Would the universe really want me to ignore how I was being treated? just because the signs looked magical? The answer was no. Synchronicity doesn't mean this is good for you. It only means this is what you're resonating with right now. And that can be beautiful, or it can be a warning. This is especially important if you're empathic, highly sensitive, or intuitive. People with wide-open energy fields tend to experience synchronicities more often because they pick up on subtle vibrations from others. But more synchronicities don't always mean more blessings. They simply mean more resonance. And resonance is neutral until you decide whether it serves you or drains you. So the key is discernment. Next time synchronicity appears, don't just smile and move on. Ask yourself, what part of me is this event reflecting? Do I want more of this vibration in my life or less? Because synchronicity is not a reward, it's feedback. It's a mirror showing you your current alignment. And once you see it this way, synchronicity stops being a superstition and starts becoming a tool helping you decide, moment by moment, whether to lean in or to step away. Which leads us to the next step, if synchronicity is feedback. How do you actually use that feedback in practice? How do you live with synchronicity in a way that empowers you, instead of confusing you? That's what we'll explore next, and that leads us to the next step. If synchronicity is feedback, how do you actually use that feedback in practice? How do you live with synchronicity in a way that empowers you instead of confusing you? That's what we'll explore next. By now, you may see synchronicity in a new light, not as random magic, but as the mirror of your inner state reflected through the fabric of reality. But knowing that is only the beginning. The real shift happens when you learn how to live with synchronicity. How to use it not as a superstition, but as a compass guiding you back into alignment. The first practice is simple but powerful: pause and feel. Most people, when they see repeating numbers or bump into a perfectly timed encounter, smile for a second, maybe take a screenshot, and then move on. But synchronicity is an invitation, not a passing curiosity. When it happens, stop, take a breath, close your eyes if you can. Instead of asking, "What does this mean?" ask yourself, "What state within me just created this reflection?" That single pause can turn a coincidence into a moment of profound self-awareness. The second practice is embodiment. Neuroscience tells us that it takes about 90 seconds for an emotional state to fully register in the nervous system. So when synchronicity shows up, don't just notice it, feel into the version of yourself it's pointing toward. If the synchronicity relates to love, allow yourself to feel loved in that moment. If it's about abundance, breathe into the feeling of being supported and safe. Hold that state for 90 seconds. In doing so, you're not just interpreting synchronicity, you're wiring your body to live inside the reality it's previewing. Third, cultivate coherence. Think of your mind, heart, and body as instruments in an orchestra. When they're out of tune, the music is chaotic. But when they harmonize, the resonance carries far and wide. Synchronicities often appear most vividly when you're in coherence, when your thoughts, feelings, and actions are aligned. This is why practices like meditation, gratitude, and heart-centered breathing are so powerful. They don't force synchronicities to happen. They tune your system into the frequency where synchronicities become natural. Fourth, practice discernment. Not every synchronicity is a green light. Some are mirrors of states you may not want to amplify. For example, if you're stuck in fear or scarcity, you may notice repeating signs that reinforce that same energy. Don't panic. Instead, recognize them as feedback. The universe is not punishing you. It's showing you what station you're tuned to. And with awareness, you can always change the channel. Finally, learn to treat synchronicity as a conversation, not a command. Too often, people look for signs as instructions. Should I go left or right? Should I stay or leave? But synchronicity isn't here to dictate your choices. It's here to reflect your resonance. When you shift the question from, "What does this tell me to do?" to, "What is this showing me about who I am right now?" you stop chasing signs and start engaging with life as a dialogue. Imagine waking up tomorrow and living this way. Instead of anxiously scanning for 11:11 on the clock, you pause when it appears. Breathe, and let gratitude wash through you for 90 seconds. Instead of brushing off a chance encounter, you ask yourself what inner state drew it to you. Instead of feeling lost when synchronicities seem to fade, you recognize it as feedback to retune your frequency. Living with synchronicity this way transforms it from a game of guessing meanings into a spiritual practice. Each moment of alignment becomes a chance to embody the version of you that already exists in the quantum field. Each synchronicity becomes a reminder, yes, this is who you are when you are in tune. And over time, you'll notice something beautiful. Synchronicities won't feel like rare sparks anymore. They'll flow as a natural rhythm, weaving through your days like background music, gentle, affirming, and undeniable. Because once you start using synchronicity as a compass instead of a prize, you stop waiting for life to prove itself to you. You become the one tuning, aligning, embodying, and life has no choice but to respond. Most people spend their lives scanning the horizon for signs. They wake up and glance at the clock, hoping to see 11:11. They look for hidden messages in a song on the radio, or wonder if a stranger's words are secretly meant for them. And while synchronicities can be beautiful, if you stop at the sign, you miss the destination. Because here's the deeper truth: synchronicity was never meant to keep you chasing breadcrumbs. It was meant to teach you how to radiate. The final step in this journey is not to notice more signs, it's to become the signal. Think of it like training wheels. When you were uncertain, when your trust in the unseen was still fragile, synchronicity showed up like small nudges of reassurance. Yes, you're connected. Yes, the field is listening. But at some point, the training wheels have to come off. The universe doesn't want you dependent on signs. It wants you to embody coherence so fully that signs are no longer needed. This is what Neville Goddard called living in the end, embodying the version of yourself who already lives the outcome. Before any evidence appears, instead of waiting for synchronicity to confirm your reality, you become the one confirming it with your state of being. You don't ask, "Is this a sign?" Instead, you breathe, align, and declare, "I am the sign." Physics offers us a metaphor here. In experiments on quantum coherence, entangled particles don't wait for external signals to align. Their state is already shared. They are the signal. In the same way, your consciousness doesn't need constant reassurance once you embody coherence. Your state broadcasts into the field, and reality rearranges itself around your frequency. When you reach this place, synchronicities don't disappear, they transform. They stop arriving as rare bursts of wonder and begin flowing as a continuous resonance. Life itself feels aligned. You walk into a room, and people mirror your energy without knowing why. Opportunities unfold, not as accidents, but as inevitabilities. You stop trying to decode patterns, because everything becomes the pattern. Joe Dispenza's research shows this vividly. when participants enter heart-brain coherence. External synchronicities skyrocket, not because the universe suddenly decides to reward them, but because they've become a coherent signal in the field. The external world simply responds to what they're radiating, spiritually. This is what sages meant by surrender, embodiment, faith. Not blind belief, but a certainty that radiates regardless of appearances. When you no longer wait for signs to prove your alignment, your entire life becomes a sign. Every step, every breath, every moment confirms the reality you're embodying. So imagine this shift in your own life. Imagine waking up tomorrow not scanning for signs, but knowing you are the one broadcasting signals into the field. Imagine no longer wondering if you're on the right path, because your coherence makes every path you walk align with you. Imagine life no longer as scattered moments of magic, but as a coherent masterpiece authored by your vibration. This is the quantum leap. From seeker to signal, from chasing to radiating, from waiting to embodying. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop needing synchronicity to reassure you, it floods your life more than ever. Not because you're chasing it, but because you finally become what it was always pointing you toward. So let this truth settle deeply. Synchronicity was never outside of you. It was always you. And the more you embody that signal, the more life has no choice but to reflect it back. By now, you've seen synchronicity from every angle. At first, it may have looked like random magic. At 11:11 on a clock, a friend calling the moment you thought of them, a song that feels like it was written just for you. But we've peeled back the layers and discovered something deeper. Synchronicity is not random. It's not luck. It's not breadcrumbs dropped by the universe. It is the mirror of your state of being. It is the reflection of the vibration you are carrying, rippling out across the field and echoing back in the form of meaningful events. When you're aligned with gratitude, coherence, and love, synchronicities open like doors. When you're tangled in fear or lack, they reflect that too, not to punish you, but to guide you back. We've seen how ancient wisdom and modern science tell the same story. Indra's net, with its endless jewels reflecting the entire universe, mirrors the way quantum entanglement links particles across galaxies. The observer effect reveals that your attention itself shapes reality. And Jung reminded us that these meaningful coincidences are the language of the psyche, the bridge between mind and matter. Different voices, same truth, everything is connected, and synchronicity is the whisper of that connection. We've learned how to live with synchronicity, to pause and feel instead of brushing it off, to embody the state it's pointing toward for at least 90 seconds, wiring it into the nervous system, to cultivate coherence so that your heart, mind, and body resonate like instruments playing the same song, and to remember that synchronicity is feedback, not instruction, a compass, not a command. And finally, we've taken the quantum leap, from being seekers of signs to becoming the signal itself, from waiting for life to reassure us, to living so aligned that reassurance is no longer needed. From hoping for synchronicity, to radiating coherence so strongly that synchronicity flows naturally as the rhythm of our lives. This is the shift that changes everything. Because when you embody the truth that you are the signal, the field has no choice but to agree. Life stops being a puzzle of scattered clues and becomes a mirror of your deepest essence. Every moment confirms who you are choosing to be. So the question now is not, will I see a sign? The real question is, will I live as the sign? Take a breath with me. Feel your body right here, right now. Let gratitude rise in your chest. Whisper it inside yourself, I am the signal. Let it echo through your mind, your heart, your field. Because synchronicity was never random. It was never outside you. It has always been the universe reflecting back your own coherence. And the more you embody it, the more effortless your life becomes.